So today we're looking at connecting AWS Lambda scripts to SQL Server using Python. Unfortunately, not as straightforward as you would like it to be. So typically you use PyODBC to connect to SQL Server databases. However, that needs SQL Server drivers, and these aren't installed on the Lambda environment. And it's not just a simple case of copying over a few files typically. You actually need to set up the drivers and the environment and everything to work with the AWS Lambda environment. So what are we going to do about it? We'll create a mock Lambda execution environment. So we'll make use of an EC2 instance and Docker. We're going to set everything up. We'll get database running in that environment, and then we'll actually then copy everything back out so we can deploy it into our Lambda solution. Then you profit, and for me, part of that is just letting me know that this was actually useful. I do this for my own time to share and give back in my own way, so if you could like the video, that lets me know it's actually useful for you guys. So here is AWS Management Console. We'll be using a few things: RDS, Lambda, and EC2. If we go into EC2, I've already got one instance running. All I've done is just launched a basic instance, so just standard Amazon Linux, general free tier, and I ran it up with setting up my key pair, making sure I downloaded that to a folder that is secure as far as Windows is concerned. Windows won't let you use a key pair that is in a public folder of any kind, so you can't just have it in root, for example. So this is our running instance. We're connecting to this one here. The key pair is demo pair, so we'll run our PowerShell. So here we are in PowerShell. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to start an SSH session into my EC2 instance. So we'll copy the IP address, copy that, SSH-I C drive /users/cool gamer handle downloads, and I know I'm using demo pair. So that's this here is my password key to get in. Username is ec2-user at our IP address. Yes, we trust the certificate. There we are. So now we are in our EC2 instance. A lot of this is based on some notes by Carl Lotches on GitHub. I'll link to his guide as well, but I've updated and modified it to suit my needs. The first thing we need to do is install Docker. So sudo yum install Docker. Yes. Let me start the Docker container. And then we actually run the Lambda environment. So here we have sudo docker run, entry point is bash, and we're going to be doing a Lambda CI, so version 3.6 for Python. You could do 2.7, you could do 3.7. There's a whole bunch of different Lambda execution environments. This could probably be applied and extended to node.js as well, or anything else you want to use. It looks for it locally, doesn't have it, and then we'll download it. One of the advantages of using EC2 is nice quick connection speeds to a lot of these things. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is, now we're in, You see we're in var and task, which is where code is executed in these environments for Lambda. So we're going to grab the drivers we need. For Unix ODBC, we untar it, change into the directory, and configure. Then we make and install, which sets up our drivers. Okay, after all of that, see we now have a whole bunch of files that we need. What we're actually going to do is going to cd now we install the MySQL drivers, so we get them. Install them. Now we set a bunch of flags. And then we can actually get on with installing PyODBC. So now we have a couple of files to make. So ini files. And these get copied just as large blocks. AWS-ini. And a file. Enter. And the next one. Yeah, now we can actually test if it works. Yeah, so you can see that Python has actually imported PyODBC and shows you the driver that it's using. You can now try to actually connect. There's a string that I'll include where you can actually connect to a database. But we will deal with that later. CD, I'm going to actually now start to wrap everything up and actually make sure we can get it off there and into our development environment. And we're going to wrap everything up in the task directory we're just working in. My apologies. Yeah. Now this is where things get a little bit more tricky. Because we actually need to fire up. We need to keep our Docker container working. So we'll go back over here and we'll start up another PowerShell. One advantage of PowerShell is we can launch the same command again. So we now got two concurrent connections to our EC2 interface. Oh yeah, so we're logged in. First thing we're going to do is find out which Docker containers are running currently. So we get this key here, and then we can actually use the copy command for Docker. Docker cp the container ID followed by the location of the file. Just copy it straight into the root directory. There we are. So you can see we're in home and we've copied in our package. Exit, and then we can just scp the file across. Helps if you actually use the right IP address. That's the trouble when you make notes and then you change and launch a different instance. So SSH. SCP, the new IP address, and the files we want to grab. There we go. Let's try this one. So now we have the file in on our actual computer we're going to be doing our development on. And because it's tar, it's a nested bunch of files. But you can see here we actually have that whole task directory. So we go to task. Now there's a few files we don't need. We don't need SSH. We don't need. I'll double check, make sure I'm not deleting the things we need. No, we don't need any of the bash. We don't need share. We don't need the distro information. We don't need ODBC data sources. We don't need the SSH log. Delete all of that. And to make our lives easy when we import, we'll just shorten this file name as well. So there you have it. You can just simply include this in your Lambda function. So you might then have app.py import PyODBC. Now what will happen is when you then try to actually upload your code, so I'll actually, here's one I prepared earlier. I'll copy this across. I used it, called it test.py. Import sys, there's my connection to my database. So you can see I just use basic password 123 for my test, RDS admin, nothing particularly fancy. Tries, accepts, and prints out the version information. Now I've actually updated my database, so I'll copy that across. Services, RDS, DB instances. Here's one conveniently labeled Lambda demo. So we'll take that, we'll update our file. All our username and password are the same. Close that. Delete that. And then we can simply, you will need to zip it up because we can't actually just drop files, unfortunately, into here. Send to compress zip folder. So we'll go to Lambda. create a function from scratch, lambda test. Now we've created our drivers for Python 3.6, so select Python 3.6. Choose an existing role. I have one that I've created that has support for X-ray and RDS connections. I'll try and include the config file for that later. Now, because our file is so big, we won't actually be able to edit it in inline code. We have to upload a zip file. And we'll upload our test. So test.zip. And we need to change the name of our handler. Wrong way. So if we go back to our file, our file is test.py and our handler is called handler. So test.handler. Yep. So upload tags execution role. So it's going to use that role there. Network no VPC. It will need to be on the same VPC as your database. Just select 2A, 2B, 2C. Default. Env rules. Save, and it will upload our zip file. Okay. So now that it's uploaded, we can run a test. It'll ask us to create one. Doesn't actually matter what we do because when this handler files, it doesn't actually even look at the data. It will be the test for the Lambda test. And test. The longer you wait, the less likely it feels as though it will be successful. But it was. So there we are. Successfully connected to our database. You can see the output here. Gave us the version that we're running. And that is how you get Lambda functions to talk with SQL Server.